Red Purple Law into Dragon. This is our send-off series for Red Purple Law, as this leader is about to be banned in about 3 days from when this video comes out. If you're watching this in the future, congratulations, Red Purple Law is banned. It is no longer a menace to the format for One Piece. And good riddance, I say, but you know, sad sorrow as well, as it was a main deck that I did take to a few regionals and played quite a bit. I enjoyed this deck a lot, but it was very strong and needed to be banned, so I completely understand it there. Starting off with the turn 1, get Gordon here into a potential scary board coming from the Dragon deck here. Dragon does go pretty quickly, very fast. Ends up playing a Zoro on his 3-down turn to swing in. That Gordon that I played the turn before is going to come pretty clutch here. That's going to allow me to potentially bottom deck it here and play something out. I'm going to go ahead and preemptively activate here before I even try to bottom deck it, as red decks do have a lot of triggers that potentially could hurt or kill Gordon just incidentally from me attacking into him. So I definitely want to get that out of the way. This time I'm going to go ahead and swing 5k at lead here. He takes it, and then now we're potentially going to play out something from hand. I was just reminding the opponent's a little newer to the game that if he does want to trigger something out, it can't touch your hand, right? The card has to not be not be a part of your hand if you're trying to trigger it out, because who knows, right? You know, a bad actor could potentially trigger out something else that was already in their hand. So just make sure when you're triggering life, it stays on the board. I usually keep it to the side of my life pile before I decide to trigger it out. We're gonna play a Sachi and Penguin here into a horrible glare on the player mat. I'm very sorry for that, but that is a Sachi and Penguin that's gonna come back and give me some Dawn back, taking me back up to 4 Dawn, which will take me up to 6 next turn. That is 1 threat down, 1 bad guy completely vanquished here, as we're trying to stave off the aggression here coming from Dragon here, as Dragon's just going to keep playing out big threats. He's going to start moving Dawn around, right, and potentially going 7Ks and 7Ks or higher, which is pretty scary for me. And if I don't build up a pretty fast board, a pretty heavy blocker-heavy board, I could potentially be a little scared here. Going to go and play out a Karasu. Karasu does trigger if your opponent is of the revolutionary type. You can give your opponent's leader or character minus 1,000. That is where these minus power tokens have come pretty in handy, though I did have these made for Red Purple Law. That deck now that is going to be on here, not necessarily as useful, but who knows, could be useful eventually if red decks start to pop up again. And that Karasu needs to go ASAP. I do have a Raise Max in hand here that I'm likely going to use to shut that down, but I have to decide what else I'm going to be doing on this turn. I am at 6 Dawn. I don't have your typical standard play of playing out a Kid blocker and then you know, playing your Raise Max to be able to go ahead and bottom deck something and then get that Dawn back and then play something else out, you know, yada yada, the general idea of it here. So we're going to go ahead and think about how we want to do this. I have 3 attackers up, as well as some cards in hand. I did ask my opponent to verify how much Dawn he had. I should have 1 more Dawn on my opponent, so I won't be able to play the Rager out early. I'm going to have to play it out later here. We're going to go ahead and send 5k at lead here. Let opponent decide what he wants to do. I'm just going to try to apply as much pressure as possible. I am, though, already at 2 life, which is a little bit scary, especially in a deck that could probably run quite a few Kitten Killers here. We're going to go ahead and send another 5k at lead. And then going to go ahead and take that one, and then we're going to thumb that Raise Max here. Also have that Sanji in hand. Now that Sanji could be potentially useful later. We're going to play out the Raise Max here. I'm going to go ahead and activate it. We're going to go ahead and slap that little token on there and minus 3,000 in. We're going to bottom deck here. We're trying to decide what else we want to play from hand. I could play out the Zoro Juro here. That would allow me to have 3 Dawn to go ahead and throw something back up, which is likely what I'm going to do here. Or, you know, I'm not going to get any value out of the okay, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and swing. We're gonna swing at lead, and I think what we might end up doing here is playing out a Sanji. So bottom decking it, playing out the Reiju from hand, and then playing out the Sanji with the 3 Dawn I have left up. That's a little bit of a better play to allow me to draw some cards, but also have a blocker up for his nonsense. Right, because typically Dragon plays a lot of rush characters. We're gonna play out the Reiju here. Reiju's gonna see I have 4 cards in hand, less Dawn than my opponent. We're going to go ahead and draw 2, pick up another Gordon, which is a potential answer for something in the future here, and then a Law here. We're going to go ahead and pay the 3, and we're going to play out the Sanji. So now we've got a Sanji blocker, we've got a Reiju, we've got 2 other characters on board, as well as my leader. So feeling pretty aggressive right now. We're also still protecting my board. Hand is slightly counter light, potentially. We've got a 2 1Ks, a 2K, and then a few bricks. So we do have a Kitten Killer, which is pretty nice the opponent is already at 2 life here. Though I have to be worried at this point with my opponent going up to 8 Dawn, some potential scary shenanigans coming from my opponent. Opponent's going to go ahead and flip the tables here. He's going to play a raised max on my thing, letting me use the minus power on my own thing. And pretty much invalidating Sanji or potentially KOing Sanji. He's going to go ahead and play out a Fire Fist here. Fire Fist is going to give minus 4,000, then KO a zero power character. Going to KO my Sanji, eliminating my blocker here. My opponent did have to use 2 cards from hand to do that, so I'm not too upset about it. Had to use some resources as well. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing 7k at something on my board here. I believe that's where that's going. Yep. So Ein's going to go ahead and take that. He's going to move the Dawn over and swing 6k into something here. I am kind of incentivized to take it because I do want to play the aggressive game as well, right? I can't win if I'm not hitting my opponent repetitively. So we're looking at that Sashi and Penguin in hand. That's the only 2k in my hand. I will literally only have 2 1ks after that. So I'm trying to debate if that's something I wanted to use. I've decided it's against it because I am only at 5 Dawn, and if I want to try to bottom deck something this next turn, I need something to regain resources. We end up picking up a Bond Clay here that we could potentially use. Part of me is in this weird situation where like I kind of want to bottom deck the Sanji, but the Sanji is only a 4k that could potentially grow, right? But ultimately, like my goal is to kind of keep the field kind of clear, right? Because any additional threat on board is an additional life I may be taking, right? And my hand is a little clunky. I have a blocker log could play out potentially, but with only 5 Dawn to work with, I have to be very careful. So we're gonna go ahead and send 5 into the Sanji here. That's a 5 into a 4, so it's gonna require a 2k from hand or 2 1ks to get out of it here, potentially threatening my opponent's resources, ultimately, which will allow me to more successfully go for game later. If I can just get some cards out of my opponent's hands. If this gets 2 cards out of hand, I'm happy about that. If it gets 1 card out of hand, that's fine. That's a 2k that I don't have to worry about later when we are just going to get a 2k. So opponent's putting a little bit of pressure on protecting that, which then makes me want to hit it again. So 6k into 4k. See if I can get some more cards right. If you've protected it once, right, you need to, like, there's this, like, you create this bond, right? This bond with your character where if you protect it once, you should likely protect it again, because it's going to make that first protection not feel very good. So opponent's going to go ahead and play out. So I just got 3 cards out of my opponent's hand for that Sanji. I'm going to play out the Law here. The Law is not going to have any effect because I don't think my opponent ever met the threshold. And then I think what we're going to do here is just maybe -3 and play out a Bond Clay, because I did... it could be the play here. I do have a Sachi and Penguin I could play out as well. So we might just -3 just to value it and play out the Bond Clay. Bond Clay is just going to get a Dawn up here, holding up a Radical Beam for my opponent. We could also just play out the Gordon as a threaten, right? I did it earlier in the game, though some red decks do run Marco. So that is something to think about here later in the game, that Marco does come down and KO at 3 or less. So I have to be cognizant of that. So I'm just going to use that 1 Dawn representing my theoretical Radical Beam. I love holding one Dawn open in red decks. Hey, you never know. You never know if a deck's running Radical Beam. I know there were a few law lists out there that were in fact running Radical Beam. So it's, you know, it's not outside of the realm of possibility here. Opponent's going to go ahead and play out a Luffy. Get a little face cam up here, a little sneak peek here. Trying a slightly higher up setup here, which ended up not working out in my favor when it comes to the lighting of it. But, oh well, it is what it is when you're playing in a card shop, right? I think I got there a little late, so I didn't really have time to set up effectively. But that Luffy does not have rush. That Luffy, I believe, you can attach a Dawn. He lets you attach a rested Dawn to himself, and then, like, he gets plus 2,000 power or something if he has a certain amount of Dawn attached to him. I honestly don't know what the card does, but it's very good for Dragon. All right, opponent's going to go ahead and attach a lot to lead here, and then just swing, and then now he's going to move 2 of the 4 Dawn over to Sanji. Sanji is now going to be swinging for 6k at least, trying to set me to 0, and then I have to worry a little bit about like a Kitten Killer coming out. Now he did attach an additional Dawn to Sanji, which basically tells me that there is no Kitten Killer coming out to play. He's not red purple law. You can't just magically put things into play. So that's 7k coming at Reiju. I'm gonna just go up to 8. So I'll just counter out of it there, kind of ultimately invalidating my opponent's turn. That Luffy is a 3k, so I can just easily bottom deck it without having to worry about committing a Gordon to it or anything like that. Now at this point, I have the Kitten Killer in hand. I have some cards. My opponent has no cards in hand, I don't think, at this point. No, I did ask him a question. I'm not sure. My opponent wasn't very good at keeping cards on the table, which is a little unfortunate, but I trust him enough to know that there's no shenanigans happening. He does have a few cards in hand. I think 2 or 3 cards in hand. So, like, the likelihood of me going for lethal here is not very high. So I may just continue to control the board while also playing out some blockers here. We did pick up a blocker kid in hand. I am at 5 Dawn. We're going to go ahead and send 5. The 5 is just going to go out lead here. We're going to see what my opponent does. He just does, he automatically takes it. He's going to go ahead and play out a Fire Fist. Fire Fist is going to give something minus 4,000 power and then KO a 0. Unfortunately, it is Fire Fist is for the turn, so he's just going to go ahead and give minus 4,000 to my Law Blocker, which basically means I can't attack with it. That minus 4,000 token slapping the camera is coming in pretty nicely here. That Law's a 1k. It's not going to be attacking this turn, so that pretty much tells me I'm not going to try to go for lethal this turn. I'm instead going to try to save face. I don't have any counter. I've literally got a 1k in. And reading that just to make sure that's just for the entire turn and not just for a battle, which it is for the entire turn. Counters are usually for battle, but sometimes until the end of turn. But since that is a main type of event, it is for the entire turn. So now I think at this point I'm kind of switching gears and going maybe to handle board potentially. So we're gonna go ahead and send 5 at lead, try to get some cards out of hand, and then I think now we're just gonna play a kid, bottom deck the Luffy because it's 3,000, and then attach 1 Dawn to that card all the way on the right there to swing like 6k into Sanji to try to finish Sanji off because he's got 1 card in hand. We're gonna go in bottom deck. We're gonna play out a Kid and Killer here. He's got 1 card in hand. I have 1 Dawn up. I could just kind of potentially try to go. Oh, that's a Bond Clay. Okay, so Bond Clay is going to copy the power and swing 5k. I'm going to swing 5k into his 4k. Basically tell me he doesn't have a 2k counter in hand. He's going to go ahead and take it here, and then I'm going to pass the turn. I have 2 blockers up, 2 cards in hand, 1 life. Opponent's only at 3 cards in hand. I'm feeling pretty confident right now that I will be able to survive this turn. Right, assuming that there's no shenanigans. Now there is this potential shenanigan of like a rush Luffy, right? But instead we see 2 Kid and Killers here, 2 Kid and Killers, and then 2 Dawn attach. No rush Luffy means he can't get past blockers, so I have like exactly what I need to survive this turn, right? So he can just send 7k at lead. I'm gonna take it, snap take it. It's just a 2k counter, and then he's gonna go ahead and move the Dawn over to something else. He's gonna swing 9k at lead. I'm just gonna block with one of my blockers. And then he's going to swing 7k at lead. And I think I'm going to block and then use a 2k because that I pulled out a life to save that. And then we'll go to my turn here and we will finish him off. He's literally got 1 card in hand, nothing on board. This is a very, very simple 11k lead, and that's game. Yeah, I had another Fire Fist in it as well, and that sums up that batch pretty easily. But it could have potentially gone sideways if my opponent saw a lot more pressure, but ultimately we were able to do work with that. So with that in mind, thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good one.